So, do you think conspiracy theorists are idiots and that they need to be more rational, and that if you had 5 minutes with them, you could convince them using your powerful scientific, epistemological approach? Well, if you watch this video, you probably see that you maybe have much more in common with a conspiracy theorist than you realised, and that actually you may not be able to convince them. But you can always convince yourself. Do you believe in the time-worn adage, the customer is always right? Maybe you don't, but maybe you think birds of a feather flock together, or maybe you think opposites attract. But whatever you sort of believe, and you must believe something, then whatever foundation that underpins these beliefs, that is still assumed. We call those assumptions, axioms. Conspiracy theorists are especially maddening, annoying, because they appear to be rational when defending their viewpoints. And the reason they appear to be rational is probably because they are being rational in their justification. It's just that their underlying axioms are false, or at least appear to be false to you. So for this reason, you can't convince them using logic, because you can't logically disentangle their axiomatic belief. So if someone always believes the customer is always right, you can't use logic to convince them, because they will believe that no matter what, and then they will circuitously go around with their behaviour to bend over backwards for a customer, no matter how badly they're being treated, because of that fundamental belief in that axiom. So underlying the conspiracy theorists' belief in, Obama not being American, vaccines not working, and the moon landing being faked, are all these axioms. Now, the reality is, you may be saying, well, yeah, the axiom is that vaccines don't work, or they cause autism, or the moon landing is faked, but they're not the real axiom. The real sort of meta axiom on top of that one, or underneath that, is that these people are the sacred protector of this secret knowledge, and that if you undermine that, then that axiom is destroyed. Now, for those people, that can't be true. So they must defend any ridiculous viewpoint to the hilt, because otherwise it will be axiomatically untrue that they are this sacred defender of esoteric knowledge that only they know, or a select few know. Now, we know that people who tend to believe in conspiracy theorists only really fully subscribe to it if they know that only a few people also subscribe to it. Studies have shown that if presented with a conspiracy theory, a new conspiracy theory that this conspiracy theorist never heard of, if they're told that the majority of the population also believe this, then they're not interested. But if they're told that only a minority, i.e. less than 20%, believe it, they're much more interested. Now, you can think of some conspiracy theories that are true, such as the thalidomide scandal, Operation U-Tree. There are a number of conspiracy theories that have actually become true. I've got an example of a riddle, which is a simple maths question that will help demonstrate the sort of mental contortions and the cage that a conspiracy theorist puts themselves in, and how you too can be trapped in that same cage. Now, it's very simple. If a bat and a ball together cost £1.10, and the bat costs £1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? I'll give you 30 seconds to think about that. Now, I'm not going to give you the answer yet, but I want you to think, is the answer that you've given first, are you sure that's right? Did you say 10p? Well, that's wrong. So if you thought 10p, and I just told you that 10p was wrong, your next thought was probably, well, it must be a trick question. So you then start analysing how this could be. It's a riddle, but it isn't. It's just a simple piece of mathematics. So if you thought it was a trick question, you immediately thought that there was somebody, me, trying to pull the wool over your eyes, and that it really is 10p, well then you're thinking just like a conspiracy theorist. They would much rather think that they are being hoodwinked or fooled in some way than actually analyse their approach to comprehending the reality. And the reality is, it does not cost 10p. So, what other things are you certain of? Just like you are certain that the ball costs 10p. Are you certain that murder is always wrong? That abortion is immoral in any scenario? Do you believe that there is an objective morality outside of humans that makes sure that some actions are definitely wrong and some actions are definitely right? So what do we do when it comes to not behaving like a conspiracy theorist, or even men talking to conspiracy theorists? How can we help them and ourselves? Well, there is one philosopher that believes, I think his name's Justin Smith, that people are inherently irrational, and this isn't a bad thing, because without this kind of belief in this emotional decision making, we would endlessly dither between endless facts. You know, you can never have all the facts, and if you don't make a decision till all the facts are in, then you will never make a decision. So a certain amount of gut feeling has to come in for any important decision or any decision to be made. If we somehow market this use of irrationality, even though it seems counterintuitive, you can appeal to someone's irrationality and emotion to help them change their mind, to show them that it's part of strength to acknowledge that irrational side of yourself. In fact, Justin Smith also talks about how the pursuit of pure rationality above all costs can have a reaction of irrationality from a society in general, which is why we see things like the uprising of anti-vaccines. When the pursuit of pure rationality, or when you hold science and rationality in such high regard, and then it can be found to be wanting, or it can fail in some regards, such as advice about diet. We're constantly being told that fat is the reason, or excess fat consumption is the reason for people being obese, whereas it actually turns out it's probably sugar has more to do with it. But the more science makes errors like this, the less people will trust, and therefore throw themselves into irrational beliefs. So how does this apply to business? Well, these same kinds of axiomatic beliefs, just not being able to be turned over, has permeated business for a long time. And the ones that come to mind are things like the recording industry and the film industry when it came to streaming and downloading. Now, it took them a long time to confront and come to terms with the reality that streaming and downloading was the way forward, and that literally suing and arresting your customers was not going to lead to a better financial situation for yourself, and that somehow embracing this reality was the only way. Now, they were forced to by the financial situation, but surely they would have done a lot better if they had have considered their own axiomatic beliefs, right, that they had held on to for years, that streaming was evil and was going to destroy the industry, or that physical media was what people really wanted. People didn't care. You know, people wax lyrical about vinyl, but that survived because there's always going to be a niche market for that. most people in general just want convenience. And the industry just could not wake up to that fact. So you want to be more like, less like those industrial giants of the past who failed to revise their axiomatic beliefs and embrace your irrational side and your emotional side and confront those foundational beliefs. So the axioms may be true at some time. You know, when you start out in business, it may be true, and it probably what felt true to the recording industry, that people really loved physical media, but they don't stay true forever. And you aren't this special sole arbiter of that truth who deserves to be informed about the change in this truth. You have to perceive and understand and comprehend that change and then act accordingly, because you are not special because you are in a position of power or success. You still have to work hard and revise and think about the reality around you. So I can't actually be certain of all this, of course, and it may be that the ball is 10p, and if you think differently, that's what big supermarket wants you to think. My name's Phil Whitby, I'm a developer at SwiftCase. If you want to see more of this kind of videos, then subscribe below and leave any comment about your own pet conspiracy theory that you believe to be true, or any discussion or arguments. Why am I wrong? Anything you want to say, and I'll try and get back to you in the comments. See you next time.